You know how it is. We put up a community post asking for our esteemed audience's opinion on a given anomalous topic, and when you give us the answers, we make a video like this, responding to them. It's a perfect system. It runs like clockwork, or more specifically, like SCP-914, the Clockworks, a fascinating safe-class anomaly that can transform anything placed inside one of its chambers in a number of exciting and sometimes terrifying ways. We asked you, if the device was in your hands, how would you use it? And before we get into some of the great answers we selected, here's a quick refresher on how the machine works. When an object is placed or entity is placed into its first chamber, the user has the option to select one of 5 settings, each of which leads to a relatively predictable result. First, rough, which completely destroys the item, often utterly disintegrating it and turning it into dust. There is no way to repair such an item. Coarse is a little less severe. It dismantles the object rather than destroys, cleanly and efficiently breaking it into its component parts, often in a manner that would be conducive to the object's reconstruction. 1-to-1 is a setting that replaces the object or entity with something similar, usually in size, weight, or quality. Fine is a setting that improves the item within reasonable means, rarely straying into anomalous territory with these improvements. And the most mysterious and volatile setting of all is Very Fine, which improves the item or entity in an unpredictable, anomalous manner, sometimes to disastrous results. Great, so now we're all caught up. We've handed you a great power. Now let's see if you can handle it with great responsibility. Sam Rosenthal said, "I feel like it would be interesting to put a musical instrument like a piano through it on Very Fine. It would be interesting to see what the machine would consider to be an improvement with something so subjective. Edit, it would also need to be something very high-end, like a Steinway," ooh, good choice, "so that it didn't just come out as a nicer piano. Putting a Steinway piano into the Clockworks on the Fine setting would likely result in an improvement, making it a finer instrument with a sweeter, richer sound. Potentially also changing its model from a baby grand piano to a concert grand piano. However, putting it into the machine on the Very Fine setting would be more likely to make the piano come alive, turning its legs into limbs capable of functional locomotion, and as for its keys, they kinda already resemble teeth in a weird way, so we're going to say that's a no-brainer. Its keys are definitely turning into actual teeth that are dripping with deadly venom. Anyone else getting Super Mario 64 flashbacks, or is that just me?" Isaac Ely said, "If most of the chains binding SCP-2317 have snapped, then presumably there is remnants of the chains laying around. The Foundation could combine this material with regular chains and put it on Very Fine and SCP-914 to create new ones to restrain the Devourer of Worlds. Something that's extremely important to remember is that the results of a Very Fine transmutation are always unpredictable. Upgrading the chains may result in them literally gaining a mind of their own and trying to imprison the known universe. And if they do simply become better chains, actually fixing them to the Devourer becomes the next issue. Personally, you're welcome to take care of that one first." Eddie Ember said, "So I had a crazy thought. I would put the substance produced by SCP-153, the Soul Extractor, through on 1-to-1. I'd be interested to see what the Clockwork would quantify as the equivalent to a soul. I think it would be different depending on the personality of the soul inserted. Like while one person may give their soul for love, another one may give their soul for a chocolate bar. Well, if the scientifically dubious 1907 metaphysical experiments of Duncan McDougall are to be believed, souls, despite being ephemeral, weigh roughly 21 grams. If the Clockworks have a difficult time qualitatively judging the value of a human soul, perhaps it would provide a vaguely valuable item that weighs roughly 21 grams. Little heartless, sure, but what can you expect? It's all cogs, gears, and pulleys." Shane said, "I would be interested in what would happen if you took a drawing of SCP-096 and put it on the 1-to-1 setting. Would it turn into a realistic photo? And if yes, then could this trigger the Shy Guy to attack you? I would also check this the other way around to see if you could get a pic of SCP-096 that doesn't activate his killing spree. While it's impossible to know for sure, we personally wouldn't risk this one. A single photon of SCP-096's face is enough to activate its rage state, as the failure of Dr. Dan's scramble goggles proved. So even if the Clockwork produces an even half-decent true representation of 096, looking at it will give you a truly horrifying death sentence." Alec B. said, "I would actually somehow get a part of SCP-682's body mass and experiment on it. Maybe downgrading the 682 piece by piece wouldn't let it combine together again, or maybe just upgrade, downgrade, or let some parts of 682 as they were. Maybe 682 wouldn't be able to adapt to this. Not a big chance though. Anything involving SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile, is going to be unpredictable by the very nature of the cantankerous lizard itself. The big issue with trying to downgrade 682 piecemeal is that each part would be likely to reform and adapt before you had a chance to process the rest of it. X-Wing Knight said, "What happens if you put one pill from SCP-500 on Very Fine? I would recommend against any more because there are not many, but maybe it would duplicate the pill because I don't know how you'd improve it as it already cures literally anything. Or maybe do it on rough to see if it gets broken down to its components and see if it can be reverse engineered." All we know for sure about SCP-500 and SCP-914 is that on the fine setting, it results in SCP-427, a locket with rejuvenating properties. The Foundation are reluctant to do any tests on SCP-500 given how valuable they are and how limited the supply is. But the very fine setting could result in something amazing. Maybe a doctor capable of curing anything. You know, the kind of doctor that SCP-049 wishes he was. Mr. Arthur said, "It would be interesting to put the researcher that presents the SCPs on Very Fine. Maybe the machine will make the researcher into one of the writers of SCP-001, the database." Hold on. You mean me? You want to put me in that thing? Oh, you definitely don't want to put me in the machine at the Very Fine setting. We'd suddenly be capable of putting out a new video every few minutes. It'd destroy your timelines. And even if you unsubscribed, you'd still see the videos. They just keep coming. There is no escape. SCP Explained is eternal. There is no escape! Moving on. Dr. Veronica said, "Ah, it happened. My request to be hired as a doctor at the Foundation has been accepted. How about taking SCP-458, the never-ending pizza box, and putting it through on Very Fine? I imagine that it may be able to turn into something that can infinitely reproduce any food you desire. Failing that, maybe put a politician through on the Very Fine setting. Will that make them a very fine politician or a very fine person that happens to be a politician? Or will it make them Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear Rising? Pizzas and politicians, the two P's of conflicting emotions. Putting SCP-458 through SCP-914 might result in it turning into an entire pizzeria that gives away perfect pizzas at no cost. They'll have wonderful service, impeccable atmosphere, and always remember your name. They'll even give away free breadsticks and exquisite garlic bread bowls for the table, along with discounts on the finest mid-tier wine you've ever seen. It'd be divine. The politicians, on the other hand, could go in one of two ways. Maybe they'd become a true champion of the people, guided by ironclad principles that they'll fight tooth and nail to see actualized, doing right by their voters and the general public, treating their office with dignity and poise. Or they'll be the most incredible, silver-tongued, self-serving, conniving backstabber you've ever seen, endlessly devoted to winning office in order to monetize their position, raid the country's coffers, and run off with a fat bag of swag while the nation burns behind them. Oh wait, you said Very Fine? Chances are they can shoot lasers and are maybe 50 feet tall too. That's just kind of the thing you need to expect, although the first descriptor sounded like a normal politician. George Simonovich said, "If you put SCP-1609 through on the Fine setting, maybe it would restore it to its chair form." That is a possibility. But given the anomalous nature of SCP-1609, the vengeful remains of a chair, it's equally possible that it might just become higher quality wood chips. Perhaps, mahogany? Ooh, that'd be real nice. Gustavo Abate said, "If you put two or more things, would they fuse into one? If they do, would the machine separate them back if programmed right?" I don't believe that SCP-914 would fuse multiple items or entities that are placed into its chamber. You may be confusing that with another anomalous technology, like, say, a teleporter. But if a researcher is willing to step into SCP-914 with a fly, then we might be able to see for ourselves whether we're right. Stupid People said, "I think it would be interesting to put one of SCP-978's photos through the Fine or Very Fine settings, preferably one with an interesting desire depicted, like the Shy Guy's desire to not exist. It's unlikely that even the Clockworks would have the ability to tangibly change reality based on the photographs of the Desire camera. However, on the Very Fine setting, the photo will, at the very least, begin to move and, heck, maybe something will even crawl out. That's when you'll really regret putting any photo of SCP-096 in there. The GC Gamer YT said, I would insert a cake or some other type of food on the very fine setting to see if it would come out as a better version of that food, like a cupcake into a full cake or better quality ingredients. Maybe it would simply change the flavor and we'd find out that there's some kind of sentience behind the clockworks allowing it to have an opinion on flavors. On the fine setting, everything you've just described is likely to be correct. On the very fine setting, on the other hand, the cake may grow giant spider legs, start spewing noxious amnestic fumes, and begin attacking anyone who isn't brave enough to eat it, and end its reign of delicious, well-frosted terror. Happy birthday. Moldy Doritos said, what about Y909 from SCP-3000 on Very Fine? Interesting to see an improved amnestic effect, or perhaps it changes the substance completely. Also interesting if you put it through on rough or very rough to see the output. Probably just a weak anesthetic or perhaps just rat poison. On Very Fine, the Y909 amnestic might become so powerful that just looking at it will induce a permanent Alzheimer's-like state in its victims, effectively deleting their minds. On rough, it may just break the vials it's stored in and spill the liquid everywhere. Dark Mega 5 said, I'd print out a meme, put it in on the fine setting, Very Fine might have unforeseen consequences, and post whatever comes out for massive amounts of Reddit karma. It is an honorable plan. We do it already in our own way. Whenever we finish a video, we run it through SCP-914 on Fine just to make sure it's at top quality. And once we did it on Very Fine, and we'll let you speculate as to what video that was down in the comments. Brado said, I'm actually kind of interested to see what would happen if we put Keanu through the machine on Very Fine. Would it just break? Oh, Brado, how can you improve on perfection? Solrex the Sun King said, put my character sheet for D&D into it on Very Fine and just see what happens. Just make sure the alignment is changed to neutral or better before doing so. On Very Fine, it's likely that SCP-914 would ignore the content of the paper and instead mutate the paper itself. Perhaps it would turn itself into a deadly paper plane, flying around and blasting little paper turrets and air-to-surface missiles at its targets. And that might veer a little more into chaotic evil territory. Devon_gaming said, I feel like putting in one of my model tanks to see how it looks in the Very Fine setting. It's unlikely that those model tanks would remain models for long. They may wind up full-sized, fully autonomous and chasing you down the Foundation halls, firing lasers and radioactive payloads. They might even receive air support from the paper plane. Riley Mushill said, what happens when you put water in and set it to Very Fine? Would it become water from the Fountain of Youth, or would it become the best tasting water ever? On Very Fine, the water may become a nightmarish, aggressive creature that actively seeks out and destroys its human victims, like SCP-3280, also known as After the Storm. Though if we're extremely lucky, maybe life-giving anomalous water is in the cards. We just don't like to be overly optimistic these days. We've been burned too many times. Wild Knight Studios said, I would input the Tickle Monster in it and turn the setting to Fine, allowing the Tickle Monster's power to make SCP-682 docile forever. While it's too much of a risk to ever try putting SCP-999 into 914, if things went well, 999 may become so powerful that we'd never experience sadness or anger on Earth again. And after everything we've been through, wouldn't that be a nice reprieve? Joey Rolfe said, I would put in one of the O5 Council on Very Fine setting. Then they would make better choices because they're better than before. Don't let them know we said this, but personally, we don't think the members of the O5 Council should be getting any more anomalous superpowers. Aren't they ambiguously dangerous and powerful enough already? Dysfunctional Dragonborn said, I'd put an NFT into it on Very Fine in hopes it turns into something of value. You genuinely caught me by surprise there with that one. However, doing this might make their insidious power grow even stronger. Rather than worthless JPEGs, they might instead become a rival group, the NFT Foundation, which instead of protecting humanity from evil, instead decides to display a level of evil that rivals even the malice of the Scarlet King. It's really not worth finding out. Chosen Mosen said, I'd put my resume in, turn it to Very Fine, and see if I can eventually get hired in my college town. This is a high-risk, high-reward move. Putting your resume in on Very Fine may make it a document that immediately anomalously convinces potential employers that you would be the perfect candidate. It may push things further and make your prospective employers obsessed with you. They follow you home and watch you through your windows. They wish to take care of you. They wish to be wed to you. They will never leave you alone. After all, it was an excellent resume. Swagger said, I think putting Hideo Kojima in the Very Fine setting would show something very interesting. If you run Kojima through the clockworks on Very Fine, he might even be powerful enough to design and release Silent Hills on his own. No, we're still not over that. Is anyone? Hearth Fireheart said, a titanium prosthetic arm put in on Very Fine. Predicted result of possible prosthetic arm with anomalous properties, or an enhanced titanium prosthetic that can move exactly like a regular arm, while granting enhanced strength. We're always down for super-powered robot arms. Chances are on Very Fine it might even get shapeshifting or immensely powerful reality warping abilities. So powerful it may even begin to change the rest of your body. Picture what happens to Tetsuo in Akira. Bunker said, put a burger on the Very Fine setting. I'm very curious as to what would happen to something as simple as a burger. All we'll say is we definitely don't recommend eating the burger after you've run it through. It may wind up eating you from the inside once you're done. Deez said, I would put raw steak in the machine and put it on Very Fine. That way the steak will taste very delicious and be very fine. I'm beginning to sense that people were just getting hungry when they started sending these ones in. And we definitely don't think you should put a steak into SCP-914. For all we know, it might turn into SCP-058 and get us all killed. Nicholas Lau said, alright, this'll sound disgusting. I toss in a jar of some of my own toenails, hair, dandruff, spit, and tears. Then cover the jar in lead paint, put on a sticker saying warning radioactive materials, and come in with a hazmat suit and a lead shield. Put on fine, then evacuate the room for the object to appear. Okay. Well, that's one of the most revolting answers we've ever received here on SCP Explained. Well done, Nicholas. It's going to be a while until we can get this thought out of our heads. This is the exact opposite of Very Fine, and the only person thrilled by this answer is my therapist. Ray Parentel said, a Nickelback CD on Very Fine. Just like we said for Keanu earlier, how could you improve on perfection? And there you have it, folks. Thanks again to everyone who sent in their fascinating and, disturbing answers. If you want to be in the next video like this, keep an eye on our community tab. And thank you for your continued support. You'll always be very fine to us. Now go check out how to actually beat SCP-3008 The Infinite IKEA, and SCP-096 Look at a Picture of Shy Guy in Space, The Shy Guy Questions and Theories, for more of the weirdest and wildest responses from the SCP Explained community.